Hello and welcome. I'm Rossi Sanchez, and this is Mindful Evenings. Mindful Evenings is, in the words of one of my followers, not just another meditation thing. It's a bit of science, emotional intelligence, and a bit of story peppered with my unique sense of humor. Every week, we take a 30-minute light but deep dive into common behaviors and relationship issues and tap into the power of focus to tap into who we truly are so we can start understanding, appreciating, and loving ourselves and those around us more and creating the life we came here to live. Thank you for being here tonight to discover a concept you may not be familiar with. And when I see you, I see me, part of my relationship series. The sequence will be as follows. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, then we'll do a journaling exercise, followed by a mindfulness meditation practice. And finally, there will be open sharing if desired. To start, I want to invite you to get comfortable and relax. We're going to breathe. If you're seated, place your feet on the floor, roll your shoulders back, let out your belly, place your hands on your lap, open to the sky, and close your eyes. And let's take 3 deep and satisfying breaths. Breathe in for a count of 4. Breathe out for a count of 8. One more time. And again. Okay. Let me ask you something. If someone says or does something that bothers you, do you blame them for it? About 10 years ago, while shopping at Victoria's Secret with my last ex-husband, I saw something in a mannequin I liked, but I couldn't find it in the store, so I approached the sales lady with my question. She let me know she was helping someone on the phone and that she would get to me as soon as she could. There was something about the way she spoke to me, though, that I found offensive. She's a sales lady. She should be giving me great customer service. She didn't even look me in the eyes. She didn't even smile at me. She just dismissed me immediately. On and on went my train of thought as I glared at her while she was on the phone, joking and laughing with the customer. At one point, my ex pulled me over and asked me why I was being so rude. I'm being rude. She's not giving me the time of day or smiling at me. He insisted that I was the one with the attitude. Eventually, the sales lady came over to help, found me what I wanted, and proceeded to ring us up. I took that opportunity to apologize to her. Can't recall what I said, but I took ownership of my behavior, and even though I didn't really buy it. At the time, though, I realized there was some kind of replication thing at work there, but I wasn't self-aware enough to understand the concept behind it. That interaction was with a total stranger, but I'm sure most of you, if not all, can relate to this kind of interaction taking place within many of your closest relationships. The replication principle at work here is simple. Every relationship is a mirror reflecting back at us our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. How's that possible? Because the way we see the world is shaped by the way we view ourselves. Let me say that again. The way we see the world is shaped by the way we view ourselves. We're looking at people, circumstances, and events through our own perceptions, beliefs, and experiences, which is why two people can witness the same scenario and come away with totally different interpretations of it. When we react strongly to someone else, that's a sure sign that there's something inside of us that needs to be examined. Perhaps it's an old pain that needs healing. In the case of the sales lady, I felt she wasn't giving me the respect I deserved as a customer, when in fact, I was probably demanding that respect from her because, come to think of it, I had lost respect for myself in that marriage. This past weekend, an old friend sent me a message that triggered a kick in the gut feeling for me. I immediately went into defensive mode. I have to draw boundaries, focus on what it is I want, and maybe this isn't it, so I'll just forget about it. Then I realized I was replaying my MO. I tend to talk myself into leaving before giving the person or experience a chance and then regret it the minute I do it. So I decided I wasn't going to repeat the past. Instead, I reflected on what had actually happened, and I realized I had very few facts, mostly assumptions on my part, and that if I were to ask the other person, I'd probably get a very different story than the one streaming in my head. So I decided to give my friend and the event the benefit of the doubt and go to sleep, which is the absolute best thing you can do when faced with conflicting emotions. When we sleep, we release all resistance to what we cling to, the known, the familiar, the past, so that we can see things more clearly and embrace new possibilities. In the morning, feeling a lot brighter and more refreshed, I decided to analyze the issue. And I did what works best. I meditated. I set the intention to try to understand the exact genesis of this kick in the gut, of this emotional pain of mine. You see, my friend didn't cause it. This was something I have been carrying around for a while. So I took a walk through my imaginary life gallery. That's where pictures of different ages, stages, and experiences of my life are hung in chronological order. If I'm ever trying to recall a certain painful event or experience, I sometimes walk down my gallery in search of that specific image of that time and space that's related to what I'm feeling. After walking a few decades back, I found the culprit. It was one of those rigid sit up straight school pictures of me in my volleyball uniform with a ball on my lap, chubby teenager with pimples beaming into the camera. And suddenly, the feelings of lack of self worth I felt then jumped out at me. Although fully aware of how smart and funny and unique I was, around that time I had started to self myself short because in my mind, I was just a chubby girl with pimples who nobody wanted. I was sure of it. You see, I hung around with all the cool girls in school. They all had boyfriends or guys who chased after them. Not me, or so I thought. The one kid who was crazy about me, I didn't like. And wouldn't you know it, he turned out to be quite a hunk and a nice guy, too. Should have given him a chance. But back to this weekend. Once I became aware of how old that kick in the gut was and how it was a belief I had bought into but never served me, I embraced that insecure 14-year-old and changed her picture in my gallery. I basically rewrote my history. And I'll show you just how that is done in meditation practice. So, you see, what my friend did this weekend was shine a light on my old pain. It was a gift because thanks to him, I unloaded something that I've been carrying around for a very long time that wasn't serving me at all. That's what the mirror of relationship does if you let it. It allows you to heal your own wounds. As human beings, we're creatures of habit. We enjoy our comfort zones. We like what we know and are attracted to more of the same. We're drawn to positive and negative aspects of ourselves in others, which is why something you need to work through will keep popping up in just about every relationship. Because unless we make a concerted effort to analyze it, it's going to continue to rear its ugly head when you least expect it, no matter who you're with. And I'm not talking just about romantic relationships. This can be anyone you have an interaction with, such as the sales lady at Victoria's Secret. Sometimes it's easier to blame the world and those we come in contact with because it may be difficult to look at our reflection, especially if we're not sure we like what we're seeing. But by taking an honest look at what the mirror is showing us, we can learn a lot about ourselves. How people look, speak, and react in our presence can be a great indicator of how we portray ourselves. It could very well be that what you most dislike in someone is exactly that which you refuse to see in yourself. So, why don't we take a look at what the mirror is showing us? Take out your pen and paper. We're going to journal. In order to gain the most value from this exercise, it's important that you be honest with yourself. After all, it's just you and the paper. You don't need to share anything unless you want to, of course. So, in your sheet of paper, you're going to make 3 columns. In the first column, you're going to write down 3 things you dislike about people you know. This can be anyone from your parent or partner to the mailman, neighbor, or liquor store owner. In the second column, write down why you dislike that about them. What bothers you about that? And in the third column, write down how that makes you feel. That dislike, that thing that bothers you about someone. How does that make you feel? And now put your pen and paper aside. You can always come back to this. But right now, we're going to meditate. So get comfortable. And if you're seated, Place your feet on the floor. Relax your shoulders. Place your hands on your lap, palms facing to the sky, and let your belly come out to play. Close your eyes and inhale deeply through your nose for a count of 8. Feel your belly rise and hold it for a count of 4. Now inhale again for a count of 2. Hold and exhale slowly and softly through your mouth for a count of 10. And feel your belly emptying out into your rib cage. Let's do this again. Inhale deeply for a count of 8. Hold it for a count of 4. Inhale again for 2. Hold it. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 10. One more time. Now start to breathe normally again and just observe your breath. Coming in through your nostrils, filling up your lungs. You're not trying to breathe, you're just watching the process as it happens. But notice if by observing your breath, you change it in any way. Now, think back to the journaling exercise we just did and choose one of the 3 things you wrote you dislike in someone you know. And stay with that as you imagine that you've just entered your own art gallery. And you're standing in front of a very long corridor with pictures hanging along both sides of it. These pictures consist of special moments, key events, and situations, time spent with people or in specific places. In other words, this corridor is your life in pictures. The pictures closest to you are those from a more recent time. It could be today, 3 weeks ago, or a year ago. It all depends on what you've deemed important enough to hang in your gallery. Now, for the next 3 minutes, keeping in mind that thing you dislike in someone else and the feelings it brings up for you, start walking slowly down the corridor, looking at all your life pictures, both on the right and on the left. You're browsing your collection, looking for a picture that reminds you of that which you dislike and that feeling you're feeling. Take your time and go slow and go as far back in your life as you need to. Once you find the picture, observe it closely. Can you recognize in it what you dislike in that person? Can you recall the experience that matches that feeling? Don't judge it or yourself. Just be curious about what you're seeing as if you're on a grand journey of discovery, because you are. Now, spend some time with that memory and those feelings. Notice how they came about and if they're still serving you. If you find that picture no longer serves you, replace it with something more suitable to the you you've now become. And for the next minute, take your time painting yourself a new picture. Once you're satisfied with that new picture, walk back to the front of the gallery and find yourself a comfortable seat. We're going to do a body scan. As you scan your body, be on the lookout for any uncomfortable feelings or sensations and remember where they're housed in your body. Let's start by placing your attention on your head. Feel your scalp. Feel your ears. Feel your forehead. Your eyes. Your cheeks. Your mouth. Travel down to your neck. And down to your shoulders. Continue to scan your body for feelings or sensations. Feel your chest, your shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. Travel down your abdomen and down your back. Feel your hips. And from there, travel down to your thighs. your legs, your feet, your toes. Now imagine that on the bottom of each foot, you have a trapdoor. These trapdoors, when opened, lead to the center of the earth. Now think back to those uncomfortable feelings and sensations you noticed as you were scanning your body. Recall them and open the trapdoors and release them to the center of the earth. Once these feelings and sensations have totally left your body, close the trapdoors. Now take a deep breath in and a longer breath out. Again. One more time. And now breathe normally for one more minute. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Welcome back, everyone. So, how was that walk down memory lane? You know, that volleyball picture came to me when I started doing this exercise, and I started to recall those school days. And sure enough, that was the start of a lot of negative beliefs about myself, my self-image, my self-esteem. And by accepting it and looking at it as the experience that it was, but no longer needed to be, I was able to kind of decapitate that emotional pain that used to rear its ugly head all the time. Um, it, it may take a while before it totally leaves, but now I'm very much aware of it and know immediately I if I get any of those kinds of feelings again, I can stop myself very quickly and just kind of put that emotion up to the light for what it is and just say, you're just a thought, you're just an old belief. that is no longer true, never was actually. And the more and more you do that, the more and more it loses power, and then you're free, basically.
Sometimes going down memory lane is like walking in a landmine field,
Oh yeah.
because you never quite know if you're gonna get a a thing of daisies or a kick in the pants. I mean, it's
Mhm.
it can be a scary, not scary, it can be a tenuous process.
Yeah. Well, that's why we usually don't do it, right? It's better to shut it off than to ever look at it. But what you don't realize is that once you do it, it's so liberating, because again, it loses its power. It's just like, yeah, I mean, that was something that I did, I created, I accepted, I believed, um, or a conditioning that was placed on me, whatever it is. But it's no longer, it was probably never valid, and it's certainly not valid now. And so you shed it, and it's one less thing you carry around.
Or you understand that you gain the power over it. So you move past it, you accept it, whatever it may be, and then you move forward. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, and sometimes you go, oh Jesus, that's what that was. And I've been carrying this around for how long?
Yeah.
And I blame so and so and that person, and you kind of go back and whoa, and yeah, just takes a little self-awareness, a little acknowledgement of our beliefs, and taking a walk down memory lane always helps. Anyone else want to share anything?
I often go back to those happy times, especially when I'm going to sleep. And
Mhm.
I want to dream about this. I want to dream, some of those wonderful moments.
Yeah,
So I actually do take a walk down memory lane more often than not when I'm going to sleep.
that's a great time to do it, because then,
Yeah.
yeah, that you release resistance. You're in a good place. Oh, when you wake up, it's all nice and creamy cookie center inside.
Yeah.
Rossi, I struggled um, initially with putting down names of individuals that I may not like, certain characteristics, and I found myself going back to, my ex, um, mother of my kids, and we were high school sweethearts, and things changed along the way, and I used to blame her for the change, for some of the things, some of the verbal abusive things. But going back, it was, I've released the bitterness a long time ago, and we are kind of friends at this point. I mean, don't have much contact, but we're civil. Let's say that. But doing this exercise, what it made me realize is she was just doing what she learned from her mom, and that whatever she was doing to me was what was done to her, and it really, she really needed probably me. I was a young man and I didn't know any better, but probably needed me to be more of trying to find the source of her pain, so that she would lash out at me differently or not lash out at me at all. And so, you know, um, and of course, I'm not trying to sit up here and pretend like I I didn't have my issues and I didn't give her things to be upset with me about, because I always believe in any relationship it's 50-50 no matter what, for the most part. But it did have me just realize some things about myself and her. And going forward with any other person, is that you have to try to figure out what it is that makes them vulnerable, like in this exercise we're doing. It's not easy to go down that hallway. And the pictures are not always vibrant and not always clear. Sometimes the pictures are just old pictures and not always good pictures, but it's helpful. But I did enjoy the part where, as I got back from the hallway, and you got me with opening up my feet and putting, going down. I was like, what's she talking about? Going down to the center of the corner. That's hell. I'm not going down there. I know you ain't talking about me going down there. But
Oh, just those feelings. Release them.
I know. But I did open up the feet, and then I did start releasing some things that we always hold on to. And so thank you.
You're quite welcome. And that's an exercise you can do at any time. I mean, you're sitting in front of your computer or whatever. Just close your eyes for a few seconds. Take a few breaths, and when you're walking, release. It's you can do it anytime. You can do it anytime. And it's interesting.
I just have two things.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say I have two things, but I didn't want to take over the conversation. But when we were doing the exercise and we were looking at those lists, and there was the chew noisy on there, that is the thing that I have a really hard time with chewers and drinkers. Like, the sound is so infuriating to me, like angry. And this happens to my husband, and he's just being normal, like a human being drinking a glass of water, and it's like, why is this so loud? And it's not really, and I don't know what the issue is. I don't know why I have such an issue. And going back into our corridor, that I have a remembrance of being very, very young, and I was at the dinner table, and my stepfather yelled at me for chewing loudly. And I remember at the time that I couldn't breathe, like I had a stuffy nose or something, and I couldn't breathe. And I remember sitting at that table for the rest of my childhood, always feeling really scared and worried that I was going to get yelled at for, and he probably didn't yell at me, but that's the memory that I have. And that we have to be quiet, that I have to be small. And I never really connected the two until now. Like, I am angry when I hear people eat, like angry, and it's completely irrational. And I know that intellectually. And so it's, that was a very interesting kind of, for me. And the second thing is something that Gwen said, when going to those happy places, and especially when I'm trying to go to sleep, I had the opportunity to visit Petra in Jordan, in these beautiful carved out red canyon walls. And there is a pathway that just winds through it from the opening to get to the city, to get to where that image, where the thing is, the treasury is carved into the wall. And it's one of the most magical, beautiful, lovely places. And in order to go to sleep, like Gwen, I walk down that path, and there's the sun that is coming through in these magnificent ways. And I just walk and walk and walk and walk. And I never get to the end because I always fall asleep, but it's a very meditative, mesmerizing, peaceful place.
Yes.
That I go to often, not just when I'm sleeping, but when I'm having a moment. I just walk down that path. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Nice.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I could picture myself walking with you. Well, maybe not.
Yes, me too.
You can walk alone.
Let's go.
We could go together. We just have to be quiet. No chewing.
No,
Joking.
We're trying to sleep here.
Yeah, we're trying to sleep. And and I have to make amends, but I do have to make amends to my husband. I tell him all the time, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. And he's, we're still together, so he's okay with it. But
Someone stifled you, and by golly, you're going to stifle him, right? No, that's funny, but it's interesting that you were able to go back and find the culprit, right? Like I called it. You find the culprit. So now, every time you're faced with the same situation, you think your husband's true or somebody else, immediately you're going to go there, and you're going to go, it's because of that, and maybe that'll start, taking that power away from.
it will make me feel like, it might make me feel less like a jerk, honestly. I'm feeling crappy that I have those feelings toward it in the present, thinking, God, what a terrible person you are to think these things or to have these feelings or to feel this way. When the truth is there was something that created it. I didn't just as a human create it myself. Like it didn't just come out of me and I'm a jerk, but there were some other things that may have had a factor in creating that.
Oh,
So,
everything has a reason. Absolutely.
but if we don't know it, then you just walk around feeling like a jerk that doesn't like people who chew loud.
Or we choose to examine it, right? Because that's always a choice. You can always go back and look at it. I wanted to say something, Terrence. You mentioned the next relationship, trying to figure out what the vulnerabilities in the other person, and you didn't ask me for my advice, but I would just recommend that you don't worry about the other person, whoever that person happens to be, that you focus on falling in love with you. Because once you do that, the other person's irrelevant. And by that, I mean that it could be anybody. You could have a whole row of ladies lined up outside your place, and it wouldn't matter who you chose because you're okay with you. You understand what I mean? Once you're okay with you, then it's okay. Okay, So, yeah, every relationship begins and ends here. It's all about us. Once we figure this out, once we're happy here, then I can go into Victoria's Secret. They can ignore me to death. It won't matter. Don't worry, I'll find it. If not, I'll buy something else. No, but seriously, we take things so hard sometimes, so personally, and it's because there's something going on here that's it's not out there. Anything else? Anyone else? Well, I want to thank you for joining me tonight for the first program of the relationship series. When I see you, I see me. I hope it's gotten you closer to becoming more self-aware and to help you see that the people in your life are there to help you realize the positive and negative aspects of yourself so you can heal your emotional wounds and become whole again. As you continually do this, you'll find the process gets much easier and the reflections a lot more enjoyable. Next week, I'll bring up triggers, woohoo, and explain exactly what they are and how you can kind of start sidestepping them. I encourage you to join me, bring your partners, friends, parents, children, anyone you have a relationship with, because the topics, as you saw, are not just for couples, but they relate to ourselves as individuals and as co-creators in our relationships. So please pass the word along. I look forward to seeing you same time, same place, next Wednesday, February 10th, right here on Zoom. I'm Rossi Sanchez, and this is Mindful Evenings. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much, Rossi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
you all next
Good night.
week.
Sweet dreams in Petra.
Good night.
Good night, Terrence.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Right.